Well, today is Friday the 13th, which is seen by some as a bad omen as we head into a leadership spill, the first for a federal opposition in 16 years. Joining us live from Canberra is Sarah Henderson. Sarah, it's good to see you this morning. So who's going to be the unlucky one today?
Well, I think Angus Taylor will be successful in the leadership ballot. I'm certainly backing Angus, but I have to say, Pete, this is a very difficult day for the Liberal Party. It brings none of us any joy to challenge Sussan. She has tried her very best. She has a very long and successful political career. As I say, there's very difficult times, and I really did feel for her yesterday as many of her close colleagues walked into her office and tendered their resignation from the ministry and the shadow cabinet. But the brutal reality is that we are not a competitive force, and hopefully under Angus's leadership we will go into overdrive, fighting for the Australian people, showing Australians what we stand for and holding this truly terrible government to account.
What did Sussan Ley do that was wrong?
Look, I'm not going to engage in disparagement of Sussan this morning, Pete. I've spoken before about the fact that we were not travelling well and things have gone from bad to worse. We're simply not competitive at a primary vote of 18%, and we owe it to the Australian people to be competitive, to prosecute the issues that matter to them, because this government is sending us backwards, whether it's on the economy, on their mismanagement of immigration, of housing, and of course their contempt for regional communities. And even the defence sell-off is an appalling decision by this government. So we owe it to Australians to really fight, and we've got to do that very quickly and not just talk about principles, Pete. We've got to actually tell Australians how their lives will be better, how we are going to advance this nation under a Liberal Nationals coalition. And I'm really confident that under Angus's leadership we can do that.
But, I mean, is it just the polls for Sussan Ley, or is it policy decisions or lack thereof that meant she needed to be rolled? I mean, can you give us some idea?
Well, I've spoken before. And I spoke last November very frankly with you when things were declining. Yeah. And I think one of the things that we all have to do, and I was criticised for that, and I think my pre-selection was even threatened after I made some comments, but I am saying very clearly, we have to tell the truth. We have to be upfront with the Australian people. We have to recognise where we have made mistakes, and we have to fix those mistakes. And so I think to be an authentic and credible opposition, we've got to be upfront and honest, and that's why I've made the decision. I cannot stand the snakes in any political party who say one thing behind closed door to the journos and then tell a very different story publicly. So I made a decision to be open and honest, because I think that's very important to build the authenticity of the Liberal Party, our credibility. And so, without wanting to disparage Sussan, and as I've said before and as other colleagues have said, I think it was a mistake to abandon our policy platform. We have been in opposition for nearly 4 years, so I'm really hoping that under Angus's leadership we will move very quickly to show what we stand for in terms of our migration policy, housing, and of course education. We've got to fix the curriculum. 1 in 3 children have not reached basic proficiency levels in reading, writing and arithmetic, which is terrible for our nation. We've got to get our country back into the top 10 of education nations. So they're the things that we need to focus on, Pete, but we've got to do that extremely quickly.
Well, I mean, you're about to announce an immigration policy, and you've got a housing policy as well. Sussan Ley's team made its views known when it comes to net zero and nuclear. So what do you think Angus Taylor will do differently?
Well, I would take issue with you on that, Pete. So last year there was an education bill before the Parliament, and I prosecuted the case that we needed to bring forward a cap on foreign students, because Labor's mismanagement of foreign students is just like never before. And I had to cross the floor to put forward a reasonable 25% cap on foreign students, with also an incentive for universities to invest in student accommodation. Now, I didn't believe they were consistent. The opposition to my proposal was consistent with Liberal values. So while we've talked about principles, I think we've got to put meat on the bones very, very quickly. It's a very big challenge for Angus. We've got to turn this ship around. We've got a very big mountain to climb. We do not take anything for granted, Pete. So this is no mean feat for Angus. Hopefully, if he does get up, to turn the ship around. But we've got to put meat on the bones, and we've got to demonstrate very, very clearly what we stand for. On energy, I think there was too much mucking around. There was too much indecision. We know that the Australian people have been scammed by Labor's net zero policy. We are going backwards as a country because we are deserting our resources, the things that have made us such a great country. So again, if we are clear and courageous about what we stand for and how we are going to advance the interests of Australians, I'm absolutely confident, Pete, that we can turn things around and be a viable opposition going forward.
Do you expect to be on the front bench?
Look, I hope to be back on the front bench. I was on the front bench for the last 3 years prior to the last election as the Shadow Minister for Communications and then Education. But I think, and it's fair to say, and I'm also hoping that Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price is back on the front bench, Jane Hume, Andrew Hastie. We've got to put the best people on the field. But things are so serious now. And remember, Pete, the Labor Party, when Julia Gillard was the Prime Minister, they cut down the first female Prime Minister at a primary vote of 29%. And Anthony Albanese was part of that. And I can tell you right now, if they think that they are going to go on this tirade of character assassination, as they did to Scott Morrison, as they did to Pete Dutton, they've got another thing coming. I mean, the rubbish about the silver spoon in the mouth, when in fact there are other Labor members of Parliament, one in particular in my region, who represents the people of Corangamite, probably the wealthiest member of Parliament in the entire Parliament. So if they want to start coming after people with this sort of rubbish, they have got to fight. And one thing that I have learned after 3 years of being on Shadow Cabinet, when in fact I don't think there was enough contestability about policy, is we've got a lot of courage in our hearts. I've got a lot of courage. It's very hard to cross the floor. It's very hard to say publicly, colleagues, I think you've got this policy wrong. But there are a lot of us who've got a lot of courage. I've got a lot of fire in our belly because we are not going to let the Liberal Party decline any further. We owe it to the Australian people. And I can tell you we are so determined to improve things in the national interest.
OK, Jane Hume, we got Ben. Could we just run this for a moment? This is Ben Small, who's been questioned outside Parliament House.
Can we read anything into the state of the boot here, Ben?
Look, it's not an auspicious sign to start the day, is it? But, you know, I'm sure things can only get better from here.
Do you think Angus Taylor has the numbers to become leader?
Look, I hope so, and I've been very public in my support of Angus. I think the party's at a crossroads, as I've said. So hopefully today we can resolve the issue and stop talking about ourselves and get on with it, basically. We've got a lot of work to do for the Australian people, and I think Australia does well when it has a good government and a strong opposition. To date, we've had neither. So hopefully that changes today. Excuse me, guys.
OK, there you go, some more reaction there. Back to you, Sarah, though, but just a final point here. Jane Hume, she has confirmed that she is running for deputy, the deputy leadership this morning. Would you be supporting her in that?
Yes, I am. I think Jane will make a fabulous deputy leader of the Liberal Party.
OK, you got any idea on what portfolio you might like to have? Have you put your hand up yet in terms of horse trading?
Pete, you are really pushing things here this morning. This is not about me. This is not about any individual. We are in a really serious situation. This is about the Australian people. This is about the future of a viable, credible opposition. I can tell you, as I say, we have got fire in the belly to fight like no tomorrow. And this is a warning to the Prime Minister. If you are going to try and tear down Angus Taylor like you did to Scott Morrison and Peter Dutton, you've got another thing coming, because we are not going to stand for these grubby politics anymore. And this morning there's a grubby piece in the Fin Review where there's some suggestion that because I've got some property in Point Lonsdale that I'm conflicted in my fight for local veterans and the Queenscliff community and the Victorian community over Fort Queenscliff and over the future of Swan Island. And I can tell you, those sorts of grubby politics will not wash, because what the people of Victoria want and what the people of this country want is people who are going to fight for them when we are elected to do that job. Okay. So I'm going to fight like no tomorrow. And look at Victoria, Pete. Look at the outrageous $15 billion waste and corruption under Jacinta Allen's watch. We cannot afford another day of Labor in this country. We have to change government in November under Jess Wilson's leadership. And I can keep going, Pete, because as you can tell, I am so angry about the situation.
Well, you brought
we
that
know
up.
we need to do better. And
so you don't think you're conflicted over
and
the
I
sale
can
of
tell
those,
you,
those military sites?
I am going to fight. Sorry?
So yeah, I mean, you brought that up.
Sorry.
So you don't think you're conflicted over the sale of those military sites?
I mean, this is the sort of outrageous, grubby politics that Richard Marles is running. The government is selling off 67 defence sites. I'm the Deputy Chair of the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade Committee. We were asking a whole range of questions. There are communities across this country, veterans, are serving men and women of the ADF. This government is undertaking the worst sale of some of our most precious defence sites.
Near there?
Yeah, so I have a property nearby which I purchased a number of years ago, and there's a grubby article in the Fin Review, which is planted by the Labor Party, I expect, and they're trying to suggest this is the Fort Queenscliff, which was built in 1862. It is one of the most significant historical coastal artillery forts in the country. It was built to protect Port Phillip and Melbourne from foreign invasion. This grubby government wants to sell off some of the most precious assets, including land next to a secure facility on Swan Island. Totally irresponsible. I've been fighting for Fort Queenscliff since I was elected in 2013. In fact, Defence tried to suggest when we were in government that we should sell off Fort Queenscliff, and I said over my dead body will Fort Queenscliff be sold off. But Richard Marles, so incompetent, has got no understanding of the importance of these sites. You know, Victoria Barracks in Sydney and Melbourne, it's an absolute disgrace. And now they're running this grubby line, and I can tell you they can go for it, but we are... As I say, Pete, we have got fire in the belly. We are going to fight like no tomorrow.
All right.